Good morning and welcome back to Other Worlds Wednesday on Gaming with ADHD. Today we're going to return to the world of Shadowrun with a quick look at the Mobile Grimoire accessory for Shadowrun 6th World. Designed as a player and game master aid for Magic users, it is a set of cards that allows for quick reference while at the table without needing to dig through the core rules or street weird when you're trying to find just the right information for how your spell works. So, a couple of quick stats. You get 52 cards, 115 spells, and 2 reference cards to better calculate your drain when casting. So, let's take a quick look at the deck. And basically, it maintains the same art and design style of Shadowrun 6th World. It's got the pinkish purple text and the little design in the background, so pretty consistent with how every other 6th World product so far has been looking, which is a nice little touch. As you can see, you have sometimes you're going to have groups of spells, and sometimes they will just be if I can find one, there we go. They will just be an individual spell. So, real quick, just so if you haven't looked at these before, just so you understand how the spell is organized. So, the first thing you're going to see is the range of the spell. Now, that's either going to be touch, line of sight, or line of sight area. So, touch, you have to be in physical contact with your opponent. Line of sight, you have to physically see your opponent. Now, the rules do state you can see them through binoculars, but you cannot see them through a video display, something like that. So you have to be able, with your eyeballs, nothing more than a magnifying glass, be able to see your opponent. So that would strike someone directly. And then you can also affect an area with line of sight as well. There are 2 types of spells, either mana or physical. Mana affects everything in the astral plane or things that have a connection to the astral plane. So basically living things. So it won't work on rock or steel, things like that. Those are not living objects. The next one is the duration. Duration can be either instantaneous, where it takes effect immediately and then the magic dissipates. Sustained, where the spell is in effect as long as the magic user is keeping it in effect. Limited, where there is a set endpoint. So the spell can't run any longer, or you can drop it early, but it can't pass that endpoint. And then permanent. So the effect doesn't dissipate and it requires no further effort or focus from the original caster. It has now become a part of the world. Okay. Next is the drain value. So how much the spell is going to affect the caster physically. And then finally, the damage in the case of a combat spell. So that is either going to be physical or stun damage, and so it's clearly marked on the card for the combat spells, so that way you know what it's going to do. So, just kind of a quick look. So we've got Death Touch, Mana Bolt, and Mana Ball. Basically, these are all similar kinds of spells, sort of an upgrade to to each. So like Death Touch then goes to Mana Bolt. So Mana Bolt is along the similar lines of Death Touch, but you can, instead of having to touch someone, you can cast it at them if you can see them. And then you can also cast Mana Ball, which is the next level, and use that as a burst in an area. Now, thing to keep in mind is that even though there are like I said, they're kind of upgrades for each other, these are all individual spells. So if you like the look of one, keep in mind you're going to have to pay for it through your karma and learning for your character. So you do have to keep that in mind. Just because they're all on the same card doesn't mean the player is going to have access to all of them. But let's see. Now, another thing to point out, not all of the spells from the core rulebook and Street Weird are located in this deck. You do have a lot of them. So we've got Death Touch, Mana Bolt, and Mana Ball, Disrupt, and Ectomagic Pulse. Now, another thing to point out is they will have a description of any special effects that the spell is going to do. So in this case, because the target is a magical focus, like a staff or a wand, something like that, the card is it's going to give you the rules for how to damage it, what the disruption, how the disruption works. Knockout, Stun Bolt, and Stun Ball, again, the upgrades. Sometimes you'll also see just a description of the spell down here on the bottom. So it's not always additional rules, but sometimes it will be. So let's see here. So slay target or Bane. So in this case, selectively target a chosen meta type. Slay works like Power Bolt. Bane works like Mana Bolt. So they're showing you just a little bit more information just to clarify how the card works. Borrow Sense or Passenger. So again here, gain 1 sense or multiple senses if you choose Passenger of the target and make them your fly on the wall. Now, they cover all sorts of spells, like I said, taken from both the core rulebook and Street Weird. It is not all of them, though. There are a lot of spells. So this, like I said, you do end up with about 115 different spells. And yes, that does include spells or cards that have multiple spells on them. So there's a lot of information here. Last thing I want to point out is you do also get 2 reference cards. So you get the object resistance and the power index resistance. So basically, quick reference charts for how to determine resistance and the power, or the modifier to drain for trying to affect different materials. So basically just quick references that either the player or the game master might need in order to have the spell take effect. So that is the quick look through of the Mobile Grimoire. Now, couple of things. So what do I like about this? First off, there are a lot of spells. While most of the cards do only have 1 spell listed, when there is a group of related spells, the card does put them all together so that you don't need separate cards when you've taken more of one of the spells in these groups. I also like the Drain reference cards. I think that the cards are a nice touch for the GM and the player, because if you're going to be slinging spells, at some point you're going to have to calculate Drain or resistance, and not having to flip through the book for those charts is going to be really helpful. I also like that it is a nice, quick reference deck for when a player is trying to learn or train new spells. So if you already have Death Touch or Mana Bolt, well, you already know 2 options for that spell that are going to be related but give you different effects. And so it's going to help players decide on how they want to advance their characters. Now, as far as my recommendation, if you play a Magic user in Shadowrun, this product is absolutely going to help you and your GM in your games. It is obviously not required. The material is copied from the core rulebook and Street Weird. So, like in my case, because I have both of those books and I have the Mobile Grimoire, In some cases, I have paid for these rules now 2 or 3 times each. Okay. So, you know, you may not necessarily want to do that. You may be fine with pulling out your tablet or your book, whichever version you purchased. And so you may not need it. But having just a nice, simple card that's easy to use, and especially where, the GM may not want to look up the spell, it's something that the player, if he wants to use it and the GM has a question, he can just take the card, hand it over, and, everybody can get on their way. I do think the product is going to be better suited for a player over a GM. And the exception to that would be if a GM is running, say, a one-shot or an intro game, to be able to have the cards on hand and be able to share them with new players who may not be as familiar with the spells will be useful. But again, they're depending on how often they're doing these one-shots or demos, it may not be as useful. Overall, it is a fine product, and while I don't recommend it for everyone, those that will find it useful will definitely have plenty of use for it. So, that is my review of the Shadowrun 6th World Mobile Grimoire. If you like the video, please do give it a thumbs up and make sure you subscribe to the channel. I've got some big things coming for Shadowrun. Big to me. They're not necessarily huge or revelatory for the community as a whole. But regardless, I love Shadowrun, and if you do as well, and you want to hear more about the products and what they contain, make sure you subscribe to the channel so that you don't miss any of that. With that said, thanks for watching, and we'll talk to you next time. Bye.